Pick up on this. Pick up on this.
Hello and thanks for joining us. Today, how art can inform and bring change. Danish-Icelandic artist Olafur Eliasson is known for his large-scale installations that challenge people to rethink the way they see world issues, especially global warming. His immersive works have been shown around the world, from Paris to Tokyo. His latest exhibition, Trembling Horizons, is on at the Castello di Rivoli Museum of Contemporary Art in Turin, in Italy. Our reporter, Florence Galliard, has been to meet him.
We are at Castello di Rivoli, Museum of Contemporary Art. We are about to meet one of today's most acclaimed artists, Olafur Eliasson. Let's go. Hello, Olafur Eliasson. The name of the exhibition is Trembling Horizons. Why do you want to make horizons tremble?
Well, it's not me that makes them tremble. I think they're trembling already. There is, I think, a tendency to sort of look into the future and say once we get out there to the horizon, we will be okay somewhere in the future, because the future is, as it turns out, not guaranteed anymore due to the climate, that is, primarily. So this notion of maybe it's better to be present here and now and look down or look around instead of always focusing on, well, in the future, we will somehow make it.
The very first thing that struck me is obviously the darkness. Why do you use darkness to bring light and colors?
I come from a place, Northern Europe, Scandinavia, Iceland. 1/3 of the day is twilight, because the sun sets very slowly. The darkness is not necessarily, it's not scary. I think those times are over. Darkness is an opportunity to reconsider, to see things that we cannot see otherwise. And as it turns out, if you ever go out in the night, like when it's really dark, after 5 minutes, you can see a lot. We can see the stars sometimes, and our eyes, they adjust to the conditions.
Olafur Eliasson uses art to drive conversations about climate change. In Paris, during COP21 in 2015, he dumped 12 blocks of Greenland ice in the shape of a clock, symbolizing the race against time to stem global warming.
For me, it's more about, can I, as an artist, participate in society and contribute to the change of society? Activists are going to become increasingly important. Social disobedience are going to be more and more important, because we are not meeting the goals. I can see that we need the activists and the art too.
We are discussing climate change, and at the same time, you're world famous, you travel the world, people fly to come and see your work. So how can we offset the carbon and be carbon neutral?
In a couple of weeks, the carbon footprint of my show, like it is in all my shows, is going to be online on my homepage and on the museum's homepage. What was the price in carbon for making this show? I've met a sort of a plan on how to gradually become more and more environmentally contributing instead of taking from the planet. I had an exhibition in Tokyo. I sent my exhibition on a train from Berlin to Tokyo, through Russia, through China, and it sailed from China over to Japan. Instead of flying it, I had to send it then 6 weeks earlier than normally, but that was easy. So even though it seems difficult, it's actually not difficult at all. A lot of the changes are right in front of us, and we can all do something.
Olafur Eliasson, thank you very much for speaking with us.
If I have a minute, I would like you to teach me one thing in French.
Yes.
Can you teach me to say, sometimes the river is the bridge in French?
Parfois, la rivière est le pont.
And I say, parfois, la rivière
Et
le pont. It's a good one, huh?
c'est parfait.
Let's see the invisible line.
Next to street art. It's a big part of the Parisian landscape and has revolutionised the French art scene. The city's town hall is hosting an exhibition about the history of the artistic movement with works from more than 70 artists. Our reporters have been to meet one of them to talk about the art of graffiti.
That's Vladi, who I met in a school in the Donbass in Ukraine. I don't know what has become of him since the start of the war, but here I represented them. They have never been to Paris. It's their little trip to Paris.
Here in Belleville, northeast of Paris, this street artist is bringing children to life who he met during his travels in the style of comic strip characters. Seth has painted in public spaces all over the world, and this time he's doing it with the blessing from City Hall. Proof that the relationship between institutions and street art has radically changed.
In 30 years, we have gone from an almost total ban on painting to it being tolerated, and then even requests from certain neighborhoods to paint facades or walls, or like this here. Before, when we painted in the street, we were denounced by the neighbors. Now they go, "Ah, it's you," or "I like what you do, I've already seen your painting over there." And so it's funny.
Once maligned, urban art has even found its way inside Paris City Hall. This exhibition retraces 60 years of Parisian street art.
In the 60s, we have all these precursors, who are people who will work on posters, collage, or stencil or drawing, a little more punk as well. And then in '82, the beginning of the '80s, graffiti begins to arrive in Paris.
Then the hip-hop wave sweeps through the French capital from across the Atlantic, much to the dismay of public authorities. In 1991, the Louvre metro station is vandalized, and there's a hunt to find the person responsible. It would take years for attitudes on graffiti to change.
It's a movement and a part of art history. There is now attention to archiving the work, the technique and practices. There is an aesthetic approach of research. Here we have the new Matisse, the new masters of contemporary painting.
Today, street art is as popular as ever and welcome almost everywhere thanks to stars in the field like Banksy, Obey, and Space Invaders. Having won popular recognition, these artists continue to reinvent themselves and to look at the world around them in new ways.
Now, she was a joyful and revolutionary French artist who gave a supersized place to women in her work. Niki de Saint Phalle is famous for using a shotgun to paint and for her colourful and towering sculptures of women dubbed nanas. A show at the museum Les Abattoirs in the southern French city of Toulouse explores the later part of her career. Alison Sargent tells us more about her work.
She started off with a bang. In the 1960s, Niki de Saint Phalle invented her shooting paintings, using a gun to unleash pouches of paint. A gesture of rebellion from a woman who refused submission.
It was a spectacle and also a revolt against religion, against my background, against my family.
Saint Phalle's parents were fervent Catholics and abusive. The French-American artist revealed later in her life that her father raped her when she was 11. Art was a form of therapy and a way to take back power. She made towering sculptures of women she called her nanas, the French slang equivalent of chicks or broads. They were colorful, joyful, and fearless.
I had a desire to see men look small alongside these enormous ladies, a desire to really smash in a way the male sex in this society that oppresses us.
Some male figures did make it into her work, like basketball player Michael Jordan and jazz musician Miles Davis. They were part of Saint Phalle's series Black Heroes in the 1990s.
She was someone who always fought alongside women and anyone she saw as being discriminated against, from black people to those who were sick with AIDS in the 1980s.
Niki de Saint Phalle said she decided early in her life to be a heroine, using her work to free herself and others.
And just before we go, Parisian artist André de Vambez is being celebrated at the French capital's Petit Palais Art Museum. The Vertigo of the Imagination exhibition is inviting visitors to rediscover a painter, engraver and illustrator who enjoyed great renown during the Belle Epoque. We'll leave you with that. Thanks for your company. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Thank you.